When I hosted office hours for MBAs, I got the same question so many times that I came to expect it. If you clicked on this video, you already know what the question is. So let me give you the playbook. Wait, pause. I love making this content and it would really help me do it more if you went ahead and subscribed to the channel and liked this video. Thank you. Okay, let me start by talking a little bit about what I currently do, and then I'll tell you about my background that got me here. So what I currently do is I manage growth and marketing for a variety of startups. Generally, I work with startups that have raised money from venture capitalists and are looking to grow quickly. They bring me on and I help do all of the growth for them. This means that I create ads, I do the execution of the marketing, and then I also help them scale and set the strategy. Now, in order to get to this consulting position, it took a lot of experience. I started in investment banking, but I absolutely hated it, and I ended up leaving my job after 18 months. You can see a video about how to quit your job risk-free right here. Then I moved to San Francisco and I took on a growth role at a startup. So this growth role onboarded me to Google Ads, and I learned how to do digital marketing. This company also wanted to spend a lot of money right when Facebook was getting started, and I was the person to do it. So I learned Facebook ads pretty much day one that they opened their ads manager. And that's been awesome. That's been really helpful in my career since. Now, in addition to consulting, I also invest in startups, and I also teach at one of the top business schools in the country where I focus on digital marketing. Okay, we talked about my background. Now let's talk about what you need in order to start a successful consulting business. And honestly, you only really need one skill. And that skill can be anything as long as it clearly solves a problem for a person or a company. Common misconception is that people sell soft skills. And soft skills are fine, but they don't handle the execution of what needs to be done. If you really want to succeed in consulting, you need to offer the execution. You need to relieve the pain point right away. In my case, I solve the problem of growth marketing. That means instead of hiring a marketer, a company can hire me and I do the execution, the analysis, and the creative. A quick test. If you can clearly articulate the pain point that you're going to solve for the company, then you are able to sell your skill. And you can start with that. It doesn't need to be online, it doesn't need to be in person, it can be whatever it is, as long as you're solving a pain point for someone. Okay, you have the skill that you want to sell, now let's talk about getting your first clients. I'm sure you've heard this and it's probably cliche at this point, but getting your first clients is all about getting the first one. If you get your first client, no matter how you do it, whether it's free or for a greatly reduced rate, you're going to gain experience, you're going to add someone to your portfolio, and you'll help get future clients. However, the most important thing about these first couple clients is learning what makes them happy. As you learn what makes clients happy, you're going to be able to scale that service to get more clients and more money. For me, for example, in the beginning, I was offering digital marketing as a service. When I started doing the digital marketing, I could do the analysis, I could do the creative for them, meaning that I would make the ads. I could also set the overall strategy. It became clear, very clear, early on that companies needed help with creative. So that was a product offering that I developed. I started developing and making creative. Fast forward, as I scaled my business, I was able to offer both the execution as well as the creative. And this made finding clients easier, and it also allowed me to charge more money. So the TLDR is this. In the beginning, get your first clients however you can. Learn exactly what makes them happy. That is the key. And once you learn that, you can develop it and the money and the clients will follow. Let's talk about how much you can charge your consulting clients. And hello to everyone who skipped ahead to this part of the video. You can make a lot of money consulting. You're trading your time for money. So the more valuable your time, the more money you make consulting. In the very beginning, especially as you're learning what your clients want, what I would recommend doing is 1/4 of your monthly salary. And this is much easier with numbers, so let me explain. If you make $48,000 a year, this means you make $4,000 a month. What I would do is I would charge $1,000 a month to a client to give them 5 to 10 hours of your time. This means that you'll need 4 clients in order to offset the salary. This scales up linearly. So if you're making $100,000 or $96,000, what I would do is I would charge $2,000 per client because you could get to that $8,000 per month by taking on 4 clients. This may not sound like a lot in the beginning, but don't overlook the fact that every client is a chance to learn. And the more you learn and the more valuable your skill set becomes, the more you're able to charge. I'd say that after a few months to even a year, you could double your rates. Eventually, after you've been doing this for a couple years, you'll know exactly how much you can charge. And this gets into the next thing, which is guaranteeing yourself success. Consulting is ambiguous. Your client is paying you for services. However, their idea of services that you should provide may be different from yours. Spoiler alert, it is. The number one piece of advice that I can tell you, and this took me years to learn, is that when you're entering a consulting agreement, you need a clear scope. So what do I mean by scope? When you enter a consulting agreement, you need to detail exactly what you're responsible for and also probably what you're not responsible for. Take me, for example. When I enter an agreement, it means that I'm going to do the digital marketing for the company. Sometimes they need ads done. However, I charge extra for that. So in order to avoid any confusion or any ambiguity down the line, I will write into the scope whether or not I'm responsible for ads. This way, if 2 or 3 months go by and they clearly need ads created, and they come to me and they ask me for a favor, I'll explain to them that when we first talked about it, it wasn't in our agreement, but I'd be happy to include it in our agreement for just a little bit more money. Having a scope is crucial for you so you don't get taken advantage of during consulting. And I'll tell you right now that you may be thinking to yourself, isn't that a bit harsh? Shouldn't I say yes to a lot of my clients? Of course you should, but you also shouldn't let yourself get to a place where they're asking you for a lot of things that are taking you way too much time to provide and wasting your time. Because remember, in consulting, you're trading your time for money. So if they're wasting your time, they're wasting your money. Let's talk about setting up your consulting business. A lot of times people will ask if you need an LLC or some sort of legal entity to get started. And the answer to that is no. For the first 3 or 4 years that I was consulting, I did everything as a 1099 employee. This meant that I was a contractor for the company, and at the end of the year, I would get a bunch of 1099s for my personal income taxes. Now, remember, when you get paid, you're responsible for making estimates, and all this income is gross income. So you want to put some of this aside for taxes. The second thing that I would highly recommend if you're not going to do an LLC, but you probably also need it if you're going to go that route, is a contract that you enter into with your consulting clients. There are a bunch of free templates online, but I would strongly, like 10 out of 10, recommend that you have one of these agreements so that if there is a case of liability or if you're managing something that costs the company money, you are not responsible for that. So you must have a legal agreement in place before you start working with a company, especially if you're doing something sensitive like managing their spend. Okay, let's talk about tips I've learned while consulting. The first one is something that you've probably gotten by now, which is I would have your product dialed in 110%. The better your product is, the more successful you are with your clients, the easier your life is going to be. You're going to get more referral clients, your retention is going to get better, and you'll be able to charge more. So dial in your product to a point where your offering is perfect. Second, make sure that when you start consulting, you don't stop too soon. It's amazing how much clients will ebb and flow month to month. This is the hardest part about consulting. Enjoy the down months, knowing that busy months may be right around the corner. Also, if you're just getting started, keep in mind that it could take a couple months, 3 or 4 months, before you get a steady flow of clients. Keep that door open and have faith that if you're doing the right work, clients will eventually walk through. Number 3 is important to me and I want to communicate to you, which is don't enter a bad engagement. There have been times where my consulting load has been relatively low, and so I've entered into an agreement that was at a huge discount just because I didn't have anything else going on. Then the next month or the month after that, things got really busy and I found myself stuck in this engagement that I was unhappy in, and I couldn't really back out of it. That's a lose-lose for everyone. You're better off not taking those engagements and instead focusing on the ones that are good engagements that you're going to be excited about. 4, and this is super important, people care more about output than time. Get really efficient with your skill and do it in less time, and you'll be able to take on more clients or make more money. How to make a lot of money consulting. Hello to everyone who just skipped to this part of the video. At the end of the day, you're trading time for money. There are only 2 ways that you can make more money consulting. 1 is getting more clients, and 2 is charging more for your time. That's it. It's simple. I've thought about this for many years. Those are the 2 variables. As you get more efficient with your time, you're able to take on more clients. As you work with more clients and you learn what they value, you're able to charge more for your time. If you can do both, meaning you get more efficient and your product offering gets better, you're taking on more clients at a higher rate, and you start making a lot of money consulting. It's that simple, but it takes experience and investment on your part to get there. If you like these tips, please consider throwing me a like and subscribe. Also, if there are topics you want covered in the future, please leave them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. However, their idea of services that you should sometimes their idea of the services that you should provide are different than yours. Quick break from our sponsor, which is me. Can you please subscribe? Please? Quick break from our sponsor, which is me. Would love it. Okay, let me start by talking a little bit about my experience, and then I'll talk about my background that got me here. My experience, when I was teaching MBAs, let's talk about how much you can charge for your consulting clients. In the very beginning, especially as you learn what clients want, what I would recommend doing is, this sounds, okay, Number 3 is important to me, and the number one piece of advice that I can tell you